Oh, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you out there. So, how are you doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day because today and every day, it's a great day. Uh, Today's conversation is really going to be about empowerment and resilience, especially in kids. So, my guest, Christina M. Ramirez, she can be found at Christina, that's Christina, mramirez.com. But we're going to talk about, like I said, some resilience and it's okay to fail. Yeah, you heard it. It is. It's okay to fail. But we've all heard that thing where they say failure is not an option. That's true. It really isn't an option, but it is okay to fail because from failure, you learn, right? So you go out and you do it again until you get it right. But try not to think of failure as really failing. It's a learning process. At least that's how I look at failure. So if you're ready, let's get right into it. So let's do it now. Don't fail. This is so casual, but I just want to make sure that we get the point across. And I really want to focus on um, children and the resilience and how they can focus, how they can get ahead. You know, part of what you have here, I've got things written down, is um, how to allow kids to build confidence by allowing them to fail. Because I'm going to tell you right off the bat, that is a huge thing for me because it started with the
Mhm.
everybody is a winner kind of thing. But
Yes.
we'll get into that part later. Wow. And, you know, we touched a little bit about your sports and your love of, I'm going to say action, even though you say it takes a lot out of you to just
Yeah.
the courage to do it, especially with your snowboarding and becoming a, what was it, USASA silver
Yeah.
medalist. It's, snowboarding is still relatively new for competition and that kind of stuff. So, how did that come about?
There are not that many 50-year-old women that compete in snowboarding. So it's not that hard to qualify to nationals, and it's not very hard to place at nationals because there are not that many of us. But I figured, I'm always here with them anyways, and I might as well. I wanted to try to compete because I wanted to be a national champion. Like I knew I wasn't going to get gold because I'm really slow. But I thought I wanted to be a best-selling author and a medalist in the national championships in snowboarding. um, so I just did it. And yeah, it's not that hard of a feat at my age. So
Well, it nonetheless it is an accomplishment. So it's there's encouragement for those out there that are listening who are 40 and above and who think it's past my prime, past my time. It's like no, uh,
the thing is, like, I mean, I showed up. It's not my fault that no other woman in my age group showed up, right? But the opportunity is there, and I just
yeah,
took it. And I think I lead my life like that a lot.
that's huge right there. What you said, I think for a lot of times and a lot of instances, for everything, show up, just
Mhm.
show up. So it's there's so much that you have to offer, but like I said, the main thing that I'd like to concentrate on today is talk about kids because we are coming into the fall season for school, but this is going to be good and helpful for kids at any point in time, and I believe it's also going to be helpful for anyone at any age. So I like to be able to start off with asking you, you know, how do you change your mindset or how do you change from I will be happy to I am happy now? Because I think right now a lot of people are not happy.
Yeah. Well, I think we have this illusion that when we get something, when we achieve this thing, then we will be happy. And we don't give ourselves permission to just enjoy the place that we are in right now. And for me, like confidence, happiness, all of those things are just decisions that we make, and then we stay true to that decision. So, if you want to be happy right now, is to allow yourself the permission that even though life is not what I expected it would be, or it's not what I wanted it to be, or where I want it to be, right now, I'm good. Everything is okay. I'm like I don't have to delay my happiness. I can give myself permission to be happy now, regardless of the goals that I have or I have not met. And it's really that simple.
It is. And what's interesting about all this is use that word permission. We tend not to give ourselves that permission to be happy, but we acknowledge and we give ourselves permission to be not happy, sad,
Yes.
angry, and things like that. Um, why? Is it really that much easier to give permission to be sad and angry?
I think so. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist, but there there is data out there that says it's easier for you to have a negative thought than a positive thought. It's easier for you to feel bad than for you to feel good. And I think, again, I don't want to pretend I'm an expert in an area that I'm not. It comes from like our primitive selves, right? Like we have to be on alert. We have to be anxious so that we can be in tune with the threats to our existence. So I think it is easier to feel sad than it is to feel happy. And add to that, I think there's also a lot of conditioning. It's like, oh, if you're happy, it's like, well, there must be something behind it, or maybe there's something wrong with you. Whereas if there's something wrong with you, then it's like, oh, let me help you. Like it's almost like somebody can come from a stronger frame to help you. So it feels nice to be helped and it feels nice to be cared for. And when you aren't feeling great, like what do you want the most? Like you want the hug from somebody, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's some of those dynamics, but I do, and I'm not about toxic positivity, right? Like shit happens. Sorry, like stuff happens. If you would have told me that happiness was a choice a week after my husband died, I would have punched you. Like no, that
Hmm.
like but even in like the worst of times, I believe there is a thread. Like once we can grab onto that thread that gets to our thinking mind when it's not flooded with emotions and with chemicals, and we can see that thread, we can grab onto it, and that gives me control, and it gives any of us control to then direct where our thoughts go. And my thought could have been, my life is over. Like everything that I had built, like everything that we created, like we lived in a rural town in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. That was my dream. I had to give all of that up. So either my life is over, or I get the choice to say, is like, I get to redefine the rest of my life because unfortunately he died, but I'm still here, and so are my kids. And that's a choice that we all
Yeah.
have the power of making.
It is. It really is a choice. And a few things that you just now said, I liken it to some of the folks who go on a vacation and they're always miserable, but they always go on a vacation. And to some people, and I think to many people, that misery or that anger or whatever emotion that they have that's not the happy one, that's their norm, but that's how they look at it. And then, as you were saying too, oftentimes it seems like when things are right and they're going fine, we say something's not right or
Right.
something's got to be wrong or something's got to go wrong. Relationships are the same. Everything's nice and hunky dory. What's wrong? Something's got to be wrong. You're not saying
Right.
it's like no, everything's fine. Um,
Yeah.
so does that come down to, like I said, a choice and a mindset? How we can shift our mind to accept that happiness and be happy?
And I believe so. In my experience, in my personal life, and with the hundreds of people that I have coached, it is that, and that's why I like the theme of being empowered by discomfort, because you can face the challenge, but you can choose to see it as, okay, this is going to make me angry and keep me stuck, or it's like, ooh, I want that. Like, I don't, or I don't want to feel that anymore. And it's going to propel you to action and to evolve in your next, iteration of who you are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my belief.
I'm with you on that too, because we've all heard the thing where, taking the easiest road or the easy road is not the best highway, the best road to take. Sometimes you have to go through some of those obstacles,
Mhm.
I think, to get to that happy place. It's Don't take
And
the easy
and
things.
people's like, oh no, but you don't understand. Like, if you give me a gajillion billion dollars and a private island, I'll be just fine. Like, it's like it's like you don't like. I know that I'm gonna be great. I don't think so. I think you'll be bored out of your mind. Maybe you'll be, hunky dory for some amount of time, but for the rest of your life to just sit there and do nothing and not grow and expand, I don't think that's how we work.
Might want to ask Count Dracula on that one.
I will.
But you, yeah, but you're so right. Money, money solves a lot, but it doesn't solve everything.
Mhm.
So, and like I said, there's, I think we need to be challenged to be happy, to be, to be constantly motivated and challenged to accomplish things. And I want to jump into the confidence and building resilience in kids and things like that, because that's another important thing that we should talk about is um, children. I'm going to say it. Children are our future, and I don't want to put blame on the pandemic and being separated and distance from everybody, but that did not help kids at all. That's
Mhm.
one. And now we need to find a way to help kids come back to being kids. So, how do we help kids build confidence? And I know part of your thing is by letting them fail. So, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, my kid, he must have been like 3 years old, and we did like a little soccer tournament, right? And it's like a 15-minute game or something. And he sat in the middle of the soccer field and picked his nose for 15 minutes. Like he did nothing. And still at the end of the game, he got a trophy that was almost bigger than he was. And as a parent watching, like I still hadn't gotten into any of this kind of work, it's like there's something wrong here. Like he's so proud of himself for picking his nose. And there's nothing like children don't need to do anything to be loved and to be nurtured and to be cared for. Like they just need to exist to receive all of that. But they also need to experience that life sometimes like life gives you challenges that you don't always win because that's what's going to drive them to try to win next time or try to not feel that next time. But if we never give them the opportunity of feeling bad, right? Because we always make it better with a trophy or a lollipop, then what are we teaching them? That it's that feeling of feeling bad is not a good one and that it's there's something wrong when you feel it. Compound that over the years, now you have young adults or adults that don't really have the resilience because the moment they feel a little bad, it's like, but where's my trophy? But where's my
Mm-hmm.
medal? Like, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I have to get something to get this feeling off, right? So that I don't
Yeah.
feel this anymore. So I think we need to allow them to feel that discomfort.
Yeah, and to me, there's a lot that goes into failure and to having that feeling of I didn't get it all or whatever it might be. Because I know to some that this is kind of probably controversial for what I'm going to say, but I tend to believe that because of everybody's a winner, and because, like you said, kids who get to pick their nose and they win a trophy and things like that, I think they end up growing up not knowing any consequences.
I see.
So you you're here to be a part of a team, or you're here to do something to compete, and but you don't do anything, but you still get a trophy. And like you're saying or alluding to, where that doesn't, uh, I should say for me then, it doesn't teach you to be competitive. It doesn't teach you to go that much further to make yourself better. I'm content. Hey, I got a trophy, got a trophy. I didn't have to do anything. So, am I
No,
wrong in thinking that way, or?
no, I mean, I don't think so. And I think, there it's multifaceted, right? The consequence thing, because right now the consequence is okay, I didn't do anything, but I got a trophy. But maybe, I lived in Miami and there were a lot of hit and run drivers that would hit cyclists, and there were a few fatal accidents, and then they would drive away. And the parents would try to hide the car and would try to hide, like protect the son. And I mean, I get goosebumps because if it was my son, my desire would be to protect my child, right? But these people didn't even stop to see if the person that they hit was alive or dead, or to call 911 or to help. And that's what we create when we don't allow them to face consequences for their actions, right? Or to
Hmm.
be so afraid that that we cover for them, and that's not going to empower them. um, and one time I tried to do that with my kid, right? He got in trouble. I have a troublemaker, and I think it was like in the second grade or in the third grade, and he must have done something. And I went to the principal's office and I was like, well, no, because like my kid and he's blah, blah, blah. And I remember so well, and I'm so grateful to that principal. And she's like, Miss Ramirez, the teacher saw him, right? And it's like, you're protecting him now, right? Like in 5 years, it's going to be about smoking. In 10, like, what else is he going to be allowed to do because you're going to protect him? And that was just like a bucket of cold water. And I was like, she's so right, you know?
Yeah, and I think, like you said, parents are covered up, the kids are covered up, they don't know the consequences. But the other thing to me that's kind of frightening is the way they react to it is by anger, because they don't know any better. Because the parents or whatever has made everything, they fix it and it's everything's fine. And if the parent's not around or somebody's not around to fix it for them, I think that first emotion that comes out is anger. And I'm I'm going to say this is people may not like it, but I think that at least the time that you and I are growing up right now, I don't recall hearing about or seeing anything as far as all these mass shootings at schools or by
Yeah.
something that by young people, teenagers or young 20-year-olds and things like that. But I attribute it to because they got angry because something didn't go right or they didn't know how to emotionally handle it.
Yeah. And I think it's all, part of that lack of resilience, or
Hmm.
the seeing what you see outside, like you see Instagram, and that's somebody's curated outside, and you're comparing it to what you feel inside, and it doesn't match, right? Like you don't feel how they look. So you think there's something wrong with you. And then you start hating them because it's like, well, why are they so happy? Why can't I be happy? And it has nothing to do with that, but they just don't have the skills or the resilience to be like, okay, well, how can I make myself happy? Who is responsible for that? And then you create this anger towards a world that is not even real, because it's not like, it's not like the influencers that you see on Instagram, like that's not their real life. That's their curated life that they're putting forth. I mean, when I first quit my job, I was a triathlon influencer, and I mean, it was always a picture of me going. It was never like, oh my God, I almost died. I hate this. Um, so I think that's part of it, is the building of the resilience, is the building of, when you know how to face a challenge, then you can trust yourself, right?
Hmm.
So I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, my kids are never going to be homeless or hungry, because I will do whatever it takes for that not to happen. Whether I have to work 5 jobs, and granted, I'm educated, I have experience, I have an advantage. I get that. But from where I am, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's not going to be my kid's story.
Yeah.
If
Um,
anybody can think that for themselves, then all the other challenges, you know, they're going to be okay.
yeah. As long as they don't protect their child, like we were saying, protect by hiding them from harm and things like that. So
But if you don't allow them to have challenges, like that sense that I have that my kids are never going to be homeless, that kid will never have it.
yeah,
Right? So I'm trying, is like, you want to raise adults who, when the whole world falls apart, can rely on themselves and that know themselves enough to know, is like, I've faced difficult things. I can do this. Like, I will do whatever it takes. But if you don't know, if you've never had to do whatever it takes, how do you know that you will do whatever it takes? And that's where the
yeah,
fear is like, well, I've never had to face anything. Like, I don't know. Like, if that happens, I'm going to be really afraid of that because I don't trust myself, because I don't know, because I haven't been there before, because I haven't experienced it before. And I don't mean that there are age appropriate things. Like a child shouldn't have to experience these big traumatic things, like in order to feel empowered. Of course not. But they will be, the me of 10 years will be able to handle a whole lot of things that the me of today can't handle because I just don't know how. But little
yeah.
by little, I will, like with these micro challenges, I'll go learning and learning and be able to handle way more than I can handle today, which is way more than I was able to handle 10 years ago. And the same is true for a child.
Do you believe in with risk comes reward then?
Yeah, absolutely. If not, like, what is the reward if you do nothing, right?
A trophy. No,
For
just
picking your
kidding. But
nose.
right. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so
But
how?
I'm sorry, can I
Yeah.
say
Oh yeah. No,
something
go
about
ahead.
that risk?
Yeah.
Just because we think that we are risk adverse, but the truth is that we take risks every single day. We just assimilate them, right? So the example I always give is like, let's say that I have to walk to the grocery store to buy dinner to feed my family. And I walk there and I come back. Like, there's no guarantee I'm not going to be hit by a bus.
Yeah.
But I want to feed my family, so I still go. But I mitigate the risk. I go during the day, I cross at the cross slide, I wait for the light to turn red so that, there's no cars coming. So you mitigate the risk, but the risk is there. It's just that we're so used to it, right? And we've assimilated that risk, so we don't see it as a risk. So all we're doing is playing at a different level every time we take a little risk that we haven't before, until we assimilate it to, okay, like going to the grocery store. Now that's just what I do. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
It does. And then it throws a whole other loop in my head about, okay, as long as we're not consciously thinking about all those things, because to me, it almost borders on phobias where I consciously say, okay, I'm going to go at 3:15 because I know it's the safest time and it's 3:14 right now. I've got to wait a minute. I think that, you know, some people get to that point. Um,
Absolutely. But that's a mental health issue, right?
yes,
That's not
yes.
the majority of us should be able to handle that risk. And if we're
Yeah.
not, it means that we need help. And there's nothing wrong with needing help, but it doesn't mean that everybody else shouldn't accept their risk because I have to wait until 3:15 to cross the street.
Gotcha. Yep. Um, and I want people who are watching and listening to know that this does not have any borders as far as demographics, age, or economic level, or anything like that. This goes for everyone, everywhere. You can accept the challenges as they come, or you can avoid the challenges, whatever. But it has no borders and boundaries. So
Absolutely. But the truth is, like, some people have more challenges than others,
hmm
right? Um,
yes,
what if they were the lucky ones?
yeah,
What if we decided that it's like, wow, they really have all these opportunities to grow? That maybe that's toxic positivity. I don't know. But I know my challenges. And if everybody was going to put their stuff in the table, and my life has not been necessarily easy, I'll pick mine right back up. I know them.
yeah,
I know how to handle them, right?
yeah,
So absolutely, it doesn't. We all have challenges in different shapes, ways, and forms, but we also all have the ability to handle them with confidence if we train ourselves and we practice and we allow ourselves to make mistakes and to learn from them.
Yeah, like I said, we have to allow ourselves to do that and to learn from it. And I think the one thing that goes across for everyone is we all have choices. And if somebody says, I don't have a choice, well, you still have a choice. Y-
You do.
there is that yes and no. You do have a choice. You can't say, I don't.
You
It's
do.
even if somebody puts a gun to your head, and I'm sorry to say gun, but even if they put a gun to your head, you have a choice still.
Yeah.
It's just one might end it really quick, but you do have that choice.
Yeah. I've had a gun to my head. I have like so many story, but I was carjacked and I had a gun to my head. Um, I know, right? But what I tell people, and when I teach kids, I teach them this and they're like, whoa. And it's like, nobody can think for you. Nobody can think for
Hmm.
you. And me as a parent, I can control what time you wake up, what you eat for breakfast, what clothes you wear, what school you go to. But there's not one damn thing that I can do about what you actually think. That is power. That's power,
Yeah.
right? And as an adult also. So I have a choice. Like I can be listening to this podcast and maybe it's somebody that's really like triggered or says like, what the? That's a choice. That's a thought that they control and only they control. And the same, and so if I can control my thoughts, then I can control to change them into something that serves me better. Because it's all a crapshoot anyway. Like, who knows, right? So I might as well create the story and the thoughts that are going to empower me to do the things that I feel like I want to do right now.
Yeah. And that goes for people who don't want to listen to a podcast or watch a channel. Change the channel.
That's right.
This kind of leads me into the comparing of uh, the despair. I mean, we've kind of talked about this the whole time, but we do end up sabotaging our own self worth. And that just seems like it's a lot easier. Top of the hour, we were talking about how much easier it seems like it is to be negative and not accept the positive. And, I think that's probably part of the sabotaging our own self worth. Is that it?
I think so. And so when you compare, you're usually comparing in one of three ways, like your insides to somebody else's outside, like we said in the Instagram thing. You're usually comparing, like one person's quality to all of you. So maybe you have a friend who's really smart, and then you have a friend who's really athletic, and then you have another friend who's top, gorgeous, and another friend who's really talented musician. And you look at that one person and you're like, well, I'm not, all of these things, therefore I suck, right? The one to
Yeah.
many. And then the other one is someone's chapter 1 to someone's chapter 11. If I wanted to start a podcast today, I would look at you and be like, oh my God, I'm not good enough. Well, I haven't done it. Like you've been at it for a lot longer. So I'm comparing my chapter 1 to your chapter 11. So if we become aware of how we compare to other people, then we can just chill out a little bit and relax that we are where we're meant to be for our life's journey, right?
You've made that so easy to understand. And if you're a parent out there right now and you've got some younger kids, I think you should do exactly what Christina just said, really is to, well, explain it that way. Oftentimes, like you said, especially on the social media, we look at that person's persona as far as that exterior, and we're comparing that to our interior. I never thought about it that way. And the other very, very simple thing that you said that I never thought about is I look at, I still do, um, certain friends that have either achieved something or they've got a certain personality or look, and I mean, it doesn't affect me now, but I in my head, I think it's like, wow, I wish I was like that. But we're just looking at that one thing from that one person. But we've got
And
five different friends with all these things. But then we say, I wish I could do that, but that's just not me. Rather than, oh, just one quality.
exactly, and admire them for it. Like,
Hmm.
how amazing that you have a friend that is so great at that thing. What can you learn from them? How can they teach you? How can they inspire you? Instead of feeling like you can look at somebody and make yourself feel bad, or you can look at somebody and it's like, oh my God, here's my opportunity to be better.
Yeah.
You get to choose. Nobody chooses that for you. That's why I keep saying, like, bring it back down. Is like, you have the choice of what thought to think. And that thought is going to either lead you to feel like crap about yourself or be empowered enough to ask that person to be your mentor or to emulate them or to and to become more like some a quality that you admire in somebody. But it's a choice.
Yeah. And I think um, nowadays, because of the social media, I love social media. I think it's very positive. It can also ruin some lives, but I
Mm,
think as a whole, it's a positive thing. But what I'm getting at here is it seems like perhaps with the younger girls, and younger meaning 20s and under, a bulk of, and I'm not going off of any statistics, but they still compare themselves with the picture of that they see.
mhm.
And I think, sorry, I'm going to say this. I think females have been doing that for years. They'll just
Okay.
compare themselves to another girl, whereas guys don't look at a guy that way and say, "Oh, he's a good-looking guy, a handsome guy. I wish I looked like that." Um,
Yeah.
but that everybody is appealing to somebody. If you think you're ugly, change that frame of thought.
Mhm.
You're convincing yourself you're ugly, not everybody else. And that's where we need to do. I think part of your thing is really changing the mindset.
Exactly. And it all boils down to the choice of the thoughts that you allow yourself to think. And then
Hmm.
somebody's like, "Oh, Christina, you don't understand. It's just who I am." No, that's a habit. You have the habit of looking at somebody else and feeling bad. Change the habit to a habit of looking at somebody else and feeling inspired. Or you have a habit of looking in the mirror and thinking whatever. Change that habit, right? Is it easy? Not necessarily. It takes work. But if you make the decision that this is no longer who I'm going, like, I'm not going to allow myself to do this to myself anymore, then barring serious mental health issues, right? Like
Yeah.
barring because I'm not that's not but for the majority of us, we have the tools inside of ourselves to overcome these things. We just have to be empowered to do so.
Do you have one suggestion or one particular way where somebody could start? And I forgive me for keep on saying changing the mindset because it is a choice, and I think it starts mentally where you have to change. Is there is there something that people can do to kickstart that change, or how they could kickstart their um, mental thought?
Absolutely. So glad you asked that question. First is to be aware of it, right? To understand, okay, this is a habit. So just like I have a habit, I was a smoker for 15 years. Like I had a smoke, like I can change that habit. So first is being aware of it, and then catching yourself. So if I wanted to change, I don't know, give me a belief, just so that I have an example. Um,
You want to be a champion skateboarder? I don't
okay,
know.
I want to
That's
be.
not a belief, right?
It doesn't matter, but let's say that I was like, well, I can't skateboard because I have two left feet. You know, it's like, so I can't. I mean, like other people, they might be super talented skateboarders, but not me. But I really, really want to skateboard, but it's just, I can't. So anytime that I hear that thought in my head or that I see somebody else skateboarding and I start feeling bad about myself, I can say, oh, there it is. I know that that's my habit now because I'm trying to change and I know that it's going to keep coming up and trying to hold me back. There it is. In the past, I used to think that. But now I'm trying to be different and I'm creating a different habit. So now I'm going to think this instead. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but do that over and over and over again, and you will. Right? Can I tell you a quick story that will put this?
Yes, please.
I'll make it fast. Have you ever had like Werther's vanilla caramel candies? And if you haven't, you must have them. They're like the best candies in the world. They're the best. Oh my God. The only problem is that they come in these little bags. And if I got the bag, I would eat the whole damn bag. There was no just eating one. And my husband, trying to be nice, would go to the store and he would bring me a bag. And every time he'd bring me a bag, I'm like, no, because it was like this torture of like, I feel like I'm out of control because I would eat the whole bag. So I got a little candy and I put it right here on my computer so that I would see the candy every time that I looked at the screen. And at the beginning, every time I looked at it, I'd be like, I'm someone who has self control. Because if I didn't have self control, I'd be eating the candy. Not eating the candy, I'm somebody that has self control. I did that for like 3 days or 4 days, and it was ridiculous. But guess what? I don't need the whole damn bag anymore,
It
right?
works. I did something very similar to that. And if I may add, we're talking about habits, and so I want people to understand that it took a little bit of time to get that habit. It may take twice as long to get out of that habit. So habits
Mhm.
can't be changed overnight. So don't expect just because you
Right.
admire somebody and you feel bad and you understand that it's a habit and you recognize it and you acknowledge it, don't think it's going to change tomorrow. You got to break that habit, and it could take a little bit of time.
But if you're 1% better every day,
Hmm.
there's like this one I read that I can't remember who the person that wrote this, but like if you're 1% better every day, in 4 months, you will be 100% better.
Yeah, and that's what people don't. I think a lot of times they don't understand is either I don't have time, it takes too long. Well, what do you mean? Like you said, take that 1%. 1% every day is 100 days. That's less than 1 year. 365 days in a year. So you know, 1% a day. I
Yeah.
love that. Think about it that way. Just little incremental uh, uh, changes in your thought or whatever it might be. I like that.
Yeah. And don't be so hard on like like I can still look at myself as like, "Oh my God, there's my thought again." Like, how much longer am I gonna think like I thought I was over this already. Come on, like I can say that or I can just be gentle and be like, "Wow, I'm growing," but I
Yeah,
still have some more work to do because clearly that thought is still there, but that's
yeah.
okay. We're working on it. You can be kind to yourself. There's no law that says that this must be hard and you must suffer through it. You can be gentle.
And that works with everything, right? Everything.
Everything. Mm-hmm.
Um, I just want to throw out there again your website because I still have it up over here. Again, it's ChristinaMRamirez.com. It's Christina, just Cristina, and then the letter M, Ramirez.com. And again, you've got a lot of great things here. You do life coaching. You don't do any. Do you do individual now or mainly groups now?
I do mostly groups. I will
Hmm.
do individual if it's like, I don't know, if it's somebody that really needs my help or that we're really connected or that like is really serious about it. I think because I love group coaching because I learn a lot from listening to other people get coached because then I'm not in the hot seat and I'm not like trying to
Hmm.
think of the answers myself. But so I rarely do one-on-one coaching, but if it's I don't know if it's something really different or new or somebody that's like, but Christina, like I can't, like you're the one, of course, I'm not gonna let somebody not be helped because I'm like, no, I don't do that. But the one thing also, like I answer every email, and people think I'm crazy, but like I may not answer it right away, but just write to me. I'm happy to answer questions or to just I'll answer if somebody writes.
And I will say, yes, she is very responsive because, you booked it, you made a change. Chuck, I made a change. Oh, Chuck, I did this again. Okay, check. It's like, okay, yep. Which is
Yeah.
very great being communicative like that. Communication is key to a lot of things, and even what we're talking about today, uh, communication. That that can that can help a lot. Opens a lot of doors. Does a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Um, Now, because you have so many different things on here, and I think we've covered really everything that I had planned on talking about. Um, moms are very, very important, and you have something here about confident mom. If you wouldn't
Mhm.
mind, can we just take a couple minutes to talk about what is that? What is this confident mom thing?
Absolutely. I love working with moms, and I remember when I had my kids, like I was gonna get it right, which meant that I was gonna do everything different than my parents did, right? And so I put so much pressure on myself. It's like, but what if I'm this? But and anybody who knew 1% more than I did was an expert in my world. And I had zero trust in my parenting skills at all. So I was all like I read every book. I felt like I got a PhD in child development. And what I realized is that that's not what makes you a good parent. And it's learning to trust that you know your child better than anybody else. And because you know your child better than anybody else, starting to trust those instincts and those stories and what you want to do, how you want to empower and help that child.
Mm.
And that's what being a confident mom is. It's not like there's no, like, whether you co-sleep with your baby or you let them cry it out or they go to Waldorf schools or public schools, like all of those things, like you're the one that's going to know where your kid is going to be best served. So it's coming back to you and trusting you as a parent.
Okay. Now, because earlier I said that I think social media can help a lot. This seems like one of those situations where if you are a mom, a new mom, or an old mom, or not old in age wise, but um, I would think that seeking out a group of moms or coming to your website could be very, very helpful to those moms.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, parenting is lonely, like
hmm
especially if you don't have another parent to parent with. And even if you do, like when my kids were younger, I had my husband and it was still lonely because it was still like, what the hell am I doing? I don't want to mess this up, you know? And there is no book. And so if I didn't have my group of moms that we just bounced at, like, I don't know what I would have done. And now as a widow, single mom of two teenage boys, I feel that a lot because every decision is on me, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have somebody to bounce, but then nobody knows my family and my kids the way I do. So even if I go to somebody and I ask advice, their advice is still going to be based from their framework, but they don't really understand our culture or what we've been through. So it's trusting, it's like getting people's opinions, but coming back to you and trusting that and you know
hmm
your kids and you've got to move forward. So it's nice to have somebody to bounce ideas off. But then ultimately it's up to you to decide which idea to grab onto.
Can I throw this out there? No, I'm not going to ask. I'm going to throw this out there.
Okay,
We're
go for
talking
it.
about
I'm all for it.
moms.
Mhm.
We're talking about moms, but I don't want to forget about the dads who are raising their kids by themselves. So if we
Mm.
say mom, for me, what I'm thinking of is the nurturer. So, and oftentimes, well, I would say females a nurturer and things like that. So I'm kind of doing a blanket. So for the men out there, if you are a mom, dad, and you
Mhm.
are the sole parent of raising, or maybe you're stay-at-home dad, don't just try to find another guy to talk to about this. Moms who are the nurturers, they're your resource.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Well, I go to dads to talk to about my boys, like I didn't even know how to help them shave. Like I don't know how to shave somebody's face. Like what's that? So I have a group of guys like my brothers-in-law and they're my uncles and stuff like that that they are they're who I go to ask questions to bring that side into it because I don't have it and yet I have boys and I want them to have those male role models. So if I can't give
Yeah.
it to them, I find them for them.
And there's no shame in asking for help on anything.
Absolutely. It's actually a gift because when I ask you for help, like if I were to ask you for help, it's like, hey, Chuck, can you help me? Because I'm really stuck in this. And you spend 10 minutes of your time and you help me. How are you going to feel?
Y- Oh, I'd feel great.
Right? It's really, you feel good helping somebody else. But
Yeah.
if I never asked you for help, then I'm depriving you of of that moment of feeling good about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. That is absolutely right.
Yeah.
So the, I think I've learned a number of things from you today. So, and I will implement some of the changes and things like that. My life, honestly, I'm feeling good about things, but there's always growth. There's always something new. I think that's the other thing too, is that we shouldn't think that we know everything, and we shouldn't close the door and say, I already know that. There's something to be learned from everyone and
Mhm.
anyone every day.
Absolutely. And even if you disagree, because I used to be like that, like I was stubborn and all as all hell, like I knew everything. You could not teach me anything, but then of course like I'm learning, and um if I don't agree, I'm still learning that my point of view is really strong in me, and I'm going to
Hmm.
respect that because I'm trying to listen to you and I'm learning from you, but I just don't agree. So it just makes me stronger in my beliefs. And that's learning too.
Yeah. And let's accept everybody's opinion, I suppose.
Yeah. I,
Accepting is good, but yeah. I know there's always these little caveats of okay.
I mean, and that's when it gets tricky. And that's why, I can accept 95% of people's opinion, but there's always going to be
Yes.
that 5% that I just think they're crazy and I'm not going to accept it. I'm sorry. But that's okay. It just creates my conviction and it's just more understanding of me and who I am and how I present myself in this world and what I do with it. And we should all walk around empowered enough to be okay with that.
I 100% agree.
Okay.
Christina, this has been, like I said, really enlightening for me on a number of things. There are a handful of things that I had never even considered. I thought I was beyond that point of needing to know and learn, but especially what you touched on, saying that a lot of times if you look at something or someone and you might compare, you're just looking at that outside or that one thing, and you're comparing that one thing to everything about the inside of you. And I never thought about it that way. And I think just hearing you say that, and I think for people who now have heard you say that, if they could transfer that to their child, and I think that's 5%. That's like 5 days, five
Woo.
days worth of stuff. So um,
Awesome.
thank you very much. Is there anything else that you want to add, or are you feeling comfortable and good sharing that knowledge?
No, there's few things that I love more than doing this kind of stuff and then just talking or sharing my teachings, or my message with people. And I'm just very grateful for the opportunity of sharing it with your audience. And I hope that they, like you learned maybe not that 5%, but even if they learned 1%, I call that a victory and I'm super grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.